Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
I'm Jason Miller. Tonight on the Evan-Miller Report, President Poroshenko of Ukraine says there is now evidence that shows a Kremlin aide directed snipers to shoot his citizens in Kiev. This as Washington criticizes Russia's undermining global order. We'll have more on those stories coming up tonight. Also tonight, 3 East London schoolgirls have flown to Turkey, and there are now fears that they may cross into Syria and join ISIS. The Somali capital Mogadishu is hit by double explosions at a hotel, killing some 20 people. And Nigeria abductees have been reunited with their families following a December kidnapping. We have those stories and more. Plus, did President Obama really kill a tree in India? We'll tell you that story in our upcoming series, Oddball News. Plus, Corey Evan.
I wouldn't be surprised if he killed a tree. In Australia, Marcia has downgraded to a weaker storm, but your SIM card, if you live in the US or the UK, may be involved in a bigger storm. Did Obamacare give you bad tax info? Join the club of over 800,000 people. McDonald's is gearing up to up the pay at their McPlaces? Sounds like a McSuck-up. A sexual assault case from a children's hospital is on the docket in lawsuits across America, and I can't wait to sink my teeth into this one. And from CBS, it's the end of an era in entertainment. All that and more is coming up in this Friday edition of the Evan-Miller Report, your conservative news source, starting now.
Live from Southern California, this is the Evan-Miller Report. Jason Miller with news and politics, Corey Evan with business and entertainment. This is the Evan-Miller Report on SHR Media and Pundit Press Radio. Here now, Jason Miller.
And a very good evening on this Friday, February the 20th, 2015. I'm Jason Miller. We have those stories and more, plus the NFL coming back to Los Angeles. We'll tell you which 2 NFL sports teams may be coming back to LA. And Corey, last time we heard about football in Los Angeles was 1994. Imagine football coming back to Los Angeles. Traffic's already bad on baseball Sundays when the Dodgers are playing. Now we got football in town. It could get crazy.
I wouldn't be surprised if the Chargers were on the list to try and come back to Los Angeles because, they've been trying to get out of Qualcomm for the longest time.
Absolutely. Well, we'll have more on that story coming up on the program tonight. But, of course, we start off in Ukraine tonight, where there is new evidence tonight that the Kremlin, an aide from the Kremlin, directed snipers to kill people in Kiev. Ukrainian President Poroshenko said on Friday police evidence showed that a top Kremlin aide, Vlaskov Surkov, had directed foreign sniper groups who shot and killed protesters in Kiev a year ago. A Russian Foreign Ministry spokesman has dismissed the claims as utter nonsense, Russia's Interfax news agency has reported. Poroshenko made his comments at a meeting with relatives of some of the 100 or so people who were shot dead over a 3-day period a year ago during protests on Kiev's Independence Square against the Moscow-backed President Viktor Yanukovych. Yanukovych subsequently fled into Russia later. Just a few days ago, the head of the state security told me that in questioning special forces operatives gave evidence that the Russian presidential aide, Vlaskov Surkov, led the organization of groups of foreign snipers on the Maidan, Poroshenko said, according to his website. He also said that phone records showed that there was evidence of regular conversations between Yanukovych and the Russian security services, which revealed a clear Russian link to the shootings. They prepared for the shooting together in advance, he was quoted as saying. Surkov is a senior aide of Russian President Vladimir Putin and is often described as a gray eminence in the Kremlin. He was part of the Russian delegation in peace negotiations involving Putin, Poroshenko, and the leaders of Germany and France in Minsk, Belarus last week, and was responsible for liaising with separatist leaders. Ukrainians will commemorate the anniversary of the climax of the protest this weekend amid delusionment at a pace of reforms and resentment that no one yet has been put on trial for those killings. Meanwhile, the global police organization Interpol has put Yanukovych on its international wanted list at the behest of Ukraine on charges of embezzlement and financial wrongdoing. Meanwhile, in some of its sharpest criticism to date, at least according to some, Washington has accused Moscow on Friday of undermining the global order by supporting rebels in eastern Ukraine. Germany and France also demanded that a crumbling Ukraine truce be fully respected, but the words appeared hollow as pro-Russian rebels celebrated a battlefield victory in the strategic town of Duboslav. Russia's continued support of ongoing separatist attacks in violation of the ceasefire in eastern Ukraine is undermining international diplomacy and multilateral institutions and the foundations of our modern global order, said State Department spokeswoman and BS artist Jen Psaki. She insisted that the ceasefire reached in Minsk in September and renewed last week were the basis for a durable resolution in eastern Ukraine. She continued to say, in her latest speech of BS, we call upon Russia to honor its commitments immediately with decisive action before we see more cities disseminated and more lives lost in eastern Ukraine. Meanwhile, the European Union and the Ukraine also accuse Russia of being behind the hostilities. Moscow, of course, is denying directly supporting the rebels. Moving on to the UK tonight, where 3 East London schoolgirls have been flown to Turkey, and there are now fears that they may cross the Syrian border and join ISIS. Shahama Begum, 15, Khadija Salta, 16, and an unnamed 15-year-old who are students at Benthall Green Academy in the UK flew from Gatwick Airport on Tuesday during half-term. Commander Richard Walton of the Metropolitan Police Office, or Scotland Yard known to some, said he feared that they were extremely vulnerable. The trio are friends with a 4th girl who also traveled to Syria back in December. At the time, the 3 girls were interviewed as her friends, police said. Commander Walton said the teenagers' families were devastated, but there was a good chance the girls were still in Turkey. He hoped a police appeal via social media would persuade them not to enter Syria. The girls were last seen at their homes on Tuesday morning when they gave their families plausible reasons to be out for the day, police said. They then boarded a Turkish Airlines flight which landed in Turkey on Tuesday evening. The 3rd girl is not being named at the request of her family. Shama is possibly traveling under the name of her 17-year-old sister, Akleen, Belgium, police said. And of course, stay with the Evan-Miller Report. We'll keep an eye on this international story and give you the very latest throughout the weekend. And of course, Corey Evan will keep an eye on the story and give you an update on tomorrow's SHR Weekend News at 3 Eastern, 12 Pacific, right here on the SHR Media Networks. Over to Somalia, where 20 people, including senior officials, have been killed in an attack on a hotel in the capital, witnesses have told BBC News 24. The Central Hotel, often frequented by politicians, was hit by a car bomb and a suicide attack. Gunmen then stormed the hotel mosque and opened fire during Friday prayers. An MP and Mogadishu's deputy mayor were among the dead, according to the government. The Islamic militant group Al-Shabaab has said it was behind the attack. The Al-Qaeda-linked group has been driven out of the country's major towns, but still controls many rural areas in the south of the country. According to the BBC's Mohammed Mohami in the city, he says the area around the hotel has been cornered off. First, the car bomb exploded at the gate of the hotel, then a suicide bomber blew himself up in the hotel compound. Police Major Nohur Mohammed told Reuters and ITN. Information Minister Ahmed Mahiri told BBC that Somalia's deputy prime minister and other ministers had been at the hotel at the time, but had survived the attack. An Al-Shabaab spokesman told BBC News analyst Mary Harper had killed the officials while they were praying because they were apostates. It has been previously said it would target members of the government. A group of 158 women and children abducted by Boko Haram militants in northeastern Nigeria in December have been reunited with their families. They were kidnapped during a raid on the Kartoro village in Yobe State and spent about a month in captivity. The circumstances of their release are unclear, but they were eventually handed over to state authorities for counseling and rehabilitation. Officials said the reunion in the state capital, Dimitra, was jubilant. In April of last year, the Islamic insurgents caused worldwide outrage when they kidnapped more than 200 girls from a boarding school in Chibok in Borno State, which borders Yobe. Schoolgirls have yet to be rescued despite military assistance from countries such as China, France, the UK, and the US. Of the 158 people reunited with their families, 62 were married women and the rest were children. Over to Liberia now, where they are set to reopen their borders following a reduction in the number of Ebola cases being reported in the country. President Ellen Johnson Sirleaf made the announcement today and said nationwide curfews would also be lifted. New infections have dropped to 1/10 of the level seen when the virus was at its peak, but health officials have warned the decline has leveled off in the last month. Dr. Bruce Award, who leads the World Health Organization official response team, said data showed the steep decrease in infections had now flattened at a rate of around 120 to 150 new cases a week. It's what keeps me up at night right now, Mr. Alward said. This is not what you want to see with Ebola. More than 9,300 people have died since the outbreak of the virus early last year. However, Liberia, Guinea, and Sierra Leone have pledged to achieve zero Ebola infections within the last 2 months. Liberia was hardest hit by the outbreak, but has been leading the recovery with only 2 confirmed cases in the week, leading to February the 12th. This compares to 74% in Sierra Leone and 52% in Guinea. Over to Venezuela, where the mayor of Venezuela's capital, Antonio Ledesma, has been arrested amid accusations of a coup attempt. You may remember we covered a story a couple weeks ago that the Venezuelan president accused Vice President Joe Biden of a coup. Back to this story, though, President Nicolas Maduro said the opposition leader must, quote, answer for all the crimes committed against the country's peace and security. Camouflage police smashed into the mayor's office and then carried him away. The arrest comes on the anniversary of the start of the months of protest against Mr. Maduro's rule that have left thousands of people dead. According to the Human Rights Watch group, they have called for Mr. Lendez's immediate release. Hundreds of people have gathered at the intelligence agency headquarters in Caracas to protest at the arrest. Mr. Maduro said, quote, Mr. Ledesma, who today by order of the prosecution was captured, must be processed by Venezuelan justice to answer all of the crimes committed against the country's peace, security, and constitution. Mr. Ledesma was on a list of people and foreign powers named by Mr. Maduro last week as attempting to bring down his administration, and as we mentioned, Vice President Joe Biden here in the United States was also on that list. All right, folks, I'll be back with some D.C. news, including the Justice Department seeking an emergency stay to allow Obama's executive immigration actions to continue. But first, we send it up to Corey Evan in Los Angeles. He has some of the day's other news. Corey, take it away.
Taken. U.S. and British intelligence agencies hacked into a major manufacturer of SIM cards in order to steal codes that facilitate eavesdropping on mobiles, the U.S. news website says. According to the BBC, The Intercept says the revelations came from U.S. intelligence contractor turned whistleblower Edward Snowden. The Dutch company allegedly targeted, Dermalto, says that it's taking the allegations very seriously. It operates in 85 countries and has more than 40 manufacturing facilities. The Intercept says that the Great SIM heist gave U.S. and British surveillance agencies, quote, the potential to secretly monitor a large portion of the world's cellular communications, including both voice and data. It says that among the clients of the Netherlands-based company are AT&T, T-Mobile, Verizon, Sprint, we're both on the list, Jay, and some 450 wireless network providers around the world. That's not good, Jay. The Intercept alleges that the hack, or absolutely not. The Intercept alleges that the hack organized by Britain's GCHQ and the U.S. NSA began in 2010 and was organized by operatives in the Mobile Handset Exploitation Team. Neither agency has commented directly on the allegations. However, GCHQ reiterated that all of its activities were, quote, carried out in accordance with a strict legal and policy framework which ensures that our activities are authorized, necessary, and proportionate. Each SIM card has an individual encryption key installed by the chip manufacturer that secures communications between the handset in which it is inserted and mobile phone maps. This means that if anyone were to snoop on conversations or text messages, they'd receive garbled, unintelligible data. That is, of course, unless they carry out the surveillance to get a hold of the encryption key. With that info, they can even decrypt previously intercepted communication. But this tactic only works for phone conversations, I keep saying photo, and text messages. Communications through mobile applications such as WhatsApp, iMessage, and many email services have separate encryption systems. That stolen encryption allows the agencies to decode data that passes between mobile phones and cell towers. They were able to decrypt calls, texts, and emails intercepted out of the air. A Gemalto spokeswoman said the company was unable to verify whether they had indeed had a breach and highlighted that other SIM manufacturers could also have been targeted. She added, quote, "We take this publication very seriously and will devote all resources necessary to fully investigate and understand the scope of such highly sophisticated techniques to try and obtain SIM card data," unquote. And, of course, this does ripple throughout the world, so we will keep a very sharp eye on it, ladies and gentlemen. Stay tuned for updates. Out of Australia's broadcast news, Cyclone Marcia has been downgraded to a tropical low after cutting a path of destruction through central Queensland. The heavy rain continues to fall. That's the Marcia I was referencing, Jay.
Oh, not your girlfriend, Marcia? That's why you're taking so many photos.
Oh, no. What have I wrought this time? I'm going to hear no end of this until at least next Friday. Never mind.
Right.
Heavy rain continues to fall across several regions, and authorities are evacuating residents from the small town of Jambin, south of Rockhampton, as the Callide River floods. The automatic gates at Callide Dam were triggered overnight, releasing water into the river, which has reached 9 meters and is continuing to rise. Several properties in the region have been inundated. Sunwater says the dam is not built for flood mitigation. The gates are designed to open when the dam is full. About 50 families have been sheltering at the Jambin State School. Premier Anastasia Palachuk says 42 people have been airlifted from Jambin to Bilola after flooding affected local properties. Some residents expressed frustration, saying water should have been released from the dam sooner. Banana Shire Mayor Ron Carriage said plans were in place to do that, but cyclonic conditions made it unsafe. North of Jambin, authorities are also considering the air evacuation of about 50 people from the town of Buvinga. Police are advising residents in the region who remain in their homes to move to higher ground. Further south, the towns of Monto and Mundabera have escaped major flooding. North Burnett Deputy Mayor Faye Whelan said there had been minor to moderate flooding with a few properties packed. She said the region, which suffered massive flood damage in 2013, was, quote, very relieved. Back home in the U.S., healthcare.gov just can't catch a break. It's been targeted by hackers and shared personal info with marketing companies in the past 6 months, and now it's trying to clean up a mess for nearly 800,000 people it just sent incorrect tax info to. The Obama administration... Yes, time to turn on the party music. Anyway, the Obama administration confirmed the issue earlier this morning, and officials promised on the healthcare.gov blog to contact affected households via phone call and email over the next few days. Needless to say, don't file your taxes yet if you've signed up for health insurance using the site this past year. There is a sincerity.
This is not my fault. This was not your fault.
And thankfully, I signed up for my health care insurance through my employer just today, actually. Got that taken care of because I just became eligible for that with my new job. But needless to say, some 550,000 people, have already filed the returns, and they'll have to be given instructions on how to refile soon enough. This all might come as welcome news to people who didn't want to sit down with a copy of TurboTax for an hour, but it could wind up being a crushing blow to affected people who really need that tax refund soon. Officials told the New York Times they weren't exactly sure how the glitch happened, but 80% of the folks who use healthcare.gov to sign up for insurance were in the clear as far as the IRS is concerned. Updated tax forms are expected to hit people's mailboxes in early March, so be sure to keep your eyes peeled. Just as we will.
Was it Oscar, that trash cam bandit? Was he hanging out with Marcia?
I think he was, honestly. And I'm sure Jennifer is, needless to say, still waiting for her W-2s to come in, because last I heard, they were still a little behind on the computer system. But anyway, just a week into the new year, Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell was faced with a rhetorical dilemma. Every talking point he had about the economy was wrong, and he wasn't sure what to do about it. McConnell had argued a regulatory onslaught was hurting the economy, and that, they say, turned out to be wrong. He said the Affordable Care Act was hurting growth, and that's still unclear to us here at the Evan-Miller Report. And he's still getting a bit of backlash about how taxes are standing in the way of job creation. And so McConnell switched gears, abandoned all of his talking points, and in early January adopted a new posture. The nation's economy is looking brighter, and it's all because of Americans', quote, expectation of a new Republican Congress. In other words, according to McConnell, congressional Republicans deserve credit for the improved economy, even though it's not clear exactly what they've done. President Obama heard about this, and he seems rather amused about it, and went off on a tangent to MSNBC, which I will go ahead and send to you at the Facebook page, facebook.com/The Evan-Miller Report, for you to decide, yes, to decide what kind of fruit it is, whether it's watermelons or if it's something peachy keen to you. Former New York Mayor Rudy Giuliani is under a lot of heat for questioning President Obama's love of America, and CBS News chief Washington correspondent Bob Schaefer has some thoughts about whether Giuliani deserves the backlash he suffered since his remarks became public. Quote, I don't think it spoke well of Rudy Giuliani, Schaefer opened. I think he could have said a lot of things without saying what he did. Giuliani came under fire for his racist comments, quote-unquote, after he attacked the president's upbringing during a private New York City event with Wisconsin Governor Scott Walker on Wednesday. Giuliani later dismissed the accusations directed at him in an interview Thursday with the New York Times. Quote, some people thought it was racist, Giuliani said to the Times. I thought it was a joke since he was brought up by a white mother, a white grandfather, went to a white school, and most of this he learned from white people. For Schaefer, the questioning of the president's patriotism by Giuliani was problematic. It's one thing to characterize a person's feelings, and entirely another to quantify them, apparently. But I'll leave it up to you to determine exactly what kind of credit Mr. Giuliani deserves. And finally, I'll go ahead and wrap this bit of the news up with a winter storm warning being issued for parts of Maryland as another possible snowstorm is headed their way. This from CBS Baltimore. There, Bob Turk reports, although it's not affecting the rest of the state yet, that could change. The winds are subsiding, but temperatures will stay cold. The normal highs and lows are 46 and 27, respectively, Fahrenheit. They just nudged a high temperature this afternoon of 19 degrees, up from 17, just to give themselves a little more room. The low of 4 degrees might be a bit low for tonight, but that's okay. You just turn on the furnace or throw another log in the wood-burning stove, and hopefully you'll be able to live through it. Even though if I lived on the East Coast, even if I did live on the East Coast, that's what I mean to say, I would just do the latter, just put some more wood on the fire. But at the same time, I wouldn't want my children living there if I had children yet.
I was about to say, are you going to cook up some bacon and some beans for you and Marcia?
For Jennifer, yes, tonight. We're meeting up for video game night again. Okay. But never mind. It's off to break we go. But when we return on the Evan-Miller Report, I have a cornucopia of questionable biz involving oil strikes, grease, and McPay at McDonald's. And in lawsuits across America, sexual assault at Seattle Children's Hospital makes a pot shop near a hotel, and a UPS shipping of untaxed smoke look like smoke and mirrors. All that is coming up. Plus, Jason Miller has more on what's coming up in the D.C. news.
Thank you, Corey. Washington's ACLU sues the state hospital district over abortion services. Governor Walker of Wisconsin is backing a push to make the state a right-to-work state. The Justice Department is to seek an emergency stay to allow President Obama's executive immigration actions to continue. And did President Obama kill that tree he planted a few weeks ago in India? We'll have that story plus the oddball news on tonight's Evan-Miller Report. You're listening to SHR Media, and we'll be right back.
You're listening to the Evan-Miller Report on SHR Media and Pundit Press Radio.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
How you doing? John Grant here. When I'm not slaving over a hot microphone on the 405radio.com Saturdays at 10 a.m. Eastern, I check out Sean and Clint here at Sackheads Radio. We all appreciate the best political bloggers, writers, and commentators. We either get them on our shows or we make fun of them, as it should be. So check us out live Saturdays at 10 a.m. Eastern or forever on the podcasts on the 405radio.com.
This is Tammy Jackson, inviting you to join me on the Tammy Jackson Show every Tuesday night at 7 p.m. Pacific on the 405radio.com. Put down that remote and tune into the show that covers politics, guns and the Second Amendment, religious liberties, sanctity of life, the military, and more. I host newsworthy guests and work hard to be a conservative radio show that's not like all the others. So save Tuesday nights at 7 p.m. Pacific for me, Tammy Jackson, on the 405media.com.
Hello, I'm Paul, a student at Hillsdale College. Here is my professor, Dr. Larry Arnn, on the separation of church and state.
America's founders believed in the separation of church and state, in that the country was not to have an official religion or an official sect. But that did not mean that government was to be hostile to religion, or even indifferent to religion, as many today argue. In fact, America's founding document, the Declaration of Independence, includes both a reference to God as the author of the laws of nature and a confident assertion that human beings are endowed by their Creator with certain inalienable rights. Far from being hostile or indifferent to religion, America's founders understood the theology of the Declaration to be an essential part of the education of citizens.
This Constitution Minute was brought to you by Hillsdale College. To join the national conversation on the Constitution, go to constitutionminute.org.
Hi, this is Rooster from Outcry Radio. Catch me here on Blog Talk Radio every Saturday night at 11 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Or follow my blog. Now, back to the Sackheads.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
Let's get back to the Evan-Miller Report on SHR Media and Pundit Press Radio.
I've got the wrap on the business report on the Evan-Miller Report. I'm Corey Evans. Jason Miller will be back in a little bit with your DC News. First, I've got a story for you about the oil strike, and this story comes to us from our friends over at Yahoo News. Union negotiators on Thursday rejected the latest contract offer from oil companies and said the largest U.S. refinery strike since 1980 may spread to more plants beyond the 11 where walkouts are underway. The United Steelworkers Union said in a message to members and news media, including Reuters, that the latest proposal from lead oil company negotiator Royal Dutch Shell failed to improve safety of refineries and chemical plants in an enforceable way. The union also told workers not on strike to be prepared to walk out in the coming days. A USW spokeswoman, confirmed the message but said the union would have no further comment. A Shell spokesman said the two sides had met on Thursday. Quote, "We continue to be focused on reaching a mutually satisfactory agreement," said Shell spokesman Ray Fisher. "We remain committed to maintaining safe operations as part of the normal course of business. Out of respect for the bargaining process, we are unable to comment further on today's activity." Earlier in the week, the union's lead negotiator and International Vice President Gary Beavers told Reuters that safe staffing levels at refineries and chemical plants were a sticking point in the talks. But of course, safety is my number one concern, so hopefully they can find ways to prevent more refineries from catching fire, such as the one in Torrance, that is. At any rate, the Dow and S&P 500 ended at record highs today, while the Nasdaq notched an 8th straight day of gains after Greek and Eurozone finance ministers reached a deal to extend heavily indebted Greece's financial rescue by 4 months. The agreement removes the immediate risk of Greece running out of money next month and possibly being forced out of the single currency area. The Greek accord will allow investors to concentrate on the fundamentals that should be driving the market, said Ben Case, Chief Investment Officer at HPM Partners in New York. Shares of the global ex-FTSE Greece 20 exchange trade fund jumped 10.1%, while U.S.-listed shares of the National Bank of Greece surged 21.7% to $1.96. All the S&P 500 sectors ended in positive territory except energy, which dipped 0.3%. Apple, which hit another record closing high, gave the S&P 500 and NASDAQ their biggest boost. So, ladies and gentlemen, don't be afraid to buy into Apple stock, but do be afraid of Greece stock. I still wouldn't touch that thing with a 20-foot pole. And finally, McDonald's Corporation and its franchisees may have few options but to begin raising hourly wages as an improving U.S. economy, quote-unquote, creates competition for good workers, and its mega employer Walmart sets a higher bar on pay, according to labor experts. The pressure comes at a particularly difficult time for the world's biggest fast food chain. McDonald's and its roughly 3,000 U.S. franchisees are fighting to break the long streak of lackluster sales that has made it virtually impossible to boost prices on its famous hamburgers and french fries to cover higher labor costs. McDonald's declined comment. It referred reporters to a December statement saying that franchisees set wages for roughly 90% of the chain's more than 14,000 U.S. restaurants. McDonald's Corporation says it can increase pay only in the small number of restaurants it operates. Walmart on Thursday said it would increase entry-level pay to $9 an hour, a move it estimated would cost $1 billion and affect some 500,000 employees. Gary Chazen, professor of industrial relations at Clark University in Worcester, Massachusetts, said there's substantial overlap between fast food and Walmart workers in smaller communities. Walmart, the world's biggest retailer, and McDonald's have been the target of frequent protests by union-supported hourly workers demanding that their pay be increased to $15 an hour from an average that's closer to the federal minimum wage of $7.25 an hour. So the fact that McDonald's is working to raise wages, congratulations, 15-hour criers. You have accomplished in part some of your efforts. Have they not, Jay?
Certainly is. We'll see how many automated computer kiosks go in. That's all I have to say on that.
Unfortunately,
subject.
that's a big possibility right there.
Absolutely. All right, that's
right.
Corey.
What do you got?
Well, Corey, football may be coming back to Los Angeles. This coming from KABC TV here in Los Angeles. Carson officials in LA County celebrated the news of a proposed $1.7 billion stadium in their city with a news conference today that felt more like a pep rally. This opportunity for the people of Carson is an enormous opportunity. It will change Carson for the better in a very dramatic way, and it will change our city forever, said Carson Mayor Jim Deere. The Oakland Raiders and the San Diego Chargers announced in a joint statement on Thursday that they are planning a shared stadium in Carson if both teams fail to get a new stadium in their cities. Both teams have been trying and failing for years to find stadium solutions in Oakland and San Diego, respectively. Several officials from various organizations spoke at the news conference, but there was no speaker from either the Chargers or the Raiders football clubs. U.S. Representative Janice Hahn, no relation to Pat Hahn of this broadcast, just to be clear, reminded the crowd that her father, longtime Los Angeles County Supervisor Kenneth Hahn, helped bring the Dodgers to Los Angeles. She said, quote, "I know Brooklyn is still mad at us for that. All they wanted was a new stadium, and Brooklyn wouldn't give it to them." Janice continued to say, quote, "We want the Chargers to know, and we want the Raiders to know, if you can't work it out with your cities, we welcome you with open arms in Carson. We will give you a beautiful new stadium. We will give you fans like you never had before. The proposed stadium would seat up to 72,000 people on 168 acres located at the 405 freeway at Del Amo Boulevard. It would have room for tailgating with approximately 18,000 parking spaces. Raiders and Chargers fans have showed excitement at the event in front of their city hall while officials spoke on the economic activity and jobs the proposed stadium could bring to the local area. Carson Councilman Albert Robles arrived at the press conference wearing a hilarious Raiders-Chargers jersey. City leaders in Oakland and San Diego, though, have expressed their disappointment, with the San Diego Mayor Kevin Faulconer saying, quote, "It's real unfortunate that we learned that, according to ESPN, over the last 9 months, the Chargers weren't being upfront with San Diego. San Diegans deserve the team to stay here. We are going to continue to fight for that." The proposed Carson Stadium is just the latest in years of proposals to bring an NFL team back to the LA area. The former team that was in Los Angeles was the St. Louis Rams, and their owner, Stan Kroenke, is in part of a joint venture to build a stadium at the site of the former Hollywood Park horse track in Inglewood. Inglewood Mayor James Butt said in a statement that Carson plans do not affect stadium plans in his city. A third plan remains alive for an NFL facility, meanwhile, in downtown LA. That stadium, known as Farmers Field, was the leading candidate for the NFL's return, but is now a long shot with multiple competitors and no clear team is attached. The Chargers have said that if an agreement has not been agreed on by the end of the year regarding their stadium, that they would consider either moving up to where the Rose Bowl is played at the Rose Stadium in Los Angeles, or the Coliseum where the Raiders play. And Corey, this is interesting because the Chargers haven't been up and been called an LA team since the year 1960. And the last time an NFL team played, as I stated, was in Los Angeles, was 1994.
Very interesting how this is developing. I mean, originally when they moved to San Diego, the Chargers Stadium was state-of-the-art, but now it's become state-of-the-art, and the city has been dragging their feet on helping them get a new stadium. So, interesting to note that Mr. Deere, who I believe we've spoken to in our first season on the Evan-Miller Report back when we were in Los Angeles together doing this out of Adrenaline Studios, we spoke to him, and turns out he's a real go-getter, isn't he?
Yeah, he certainly is. And Mayor Deere, a very nice guy, and we wish the city of Carson the best of luck in getting that stadium over there, and best of luck to both the teams. And I know I'm going to have San Diego fans get in on my case because I mentioned the Raiders in this broadcast, but you know what? I think Chargers and Raider fans can come together on this, considering that both their cities are not working of their best interest.
Unfortunate for America's finest city.
Certainly right. Not so fine at this particular moment, and that is this newsman's opinion. And I'm not speaking of just one politician, I'm speaking of the whole city government in both of those cities of Oakland and San Diego. All right, folks, let's go over to Corey Evan now, and it's time for the latest on the war against global socialism.
Oh, yeah. I've got a small item of victory here. The Texas Attorney General asked the state Supreme Court today to revoke a marriage license issued a day earlier to two women, arguing the move violated a decade-old state ban against gay marriage and could cause legal chaos, according to lawyers. Travis County, where the capital Austin is, issued a marriage license to Sarah Goodfriend and Suzanne Bryant, who have been together for about 30 years and have two daughters. It was the first license issued to a same-sex couple in Texas since the ban was put in place. A county judge made a one-time exception to allow the license to be issued, saying Goodfriend was in poor health due to ovarian cancer, and denying the couple the license violated their rights under the U.S. Constitution. Attorney General Ken Paxton, a Republican who's pledged to fight for the sanctity of marriage between a man and a woman, said in a press release, quote, "The rogue actions of Travis County judges do not withstand the scrutiny of law." His office filed a petition with the Texas Supreme Court to void the license, at least have it declared as such. And a U.S. district judge in Texas last year ruled the state's ban on gay marriage law. Enforcement of the decision is on hold pending an appeal. And get this from the Washington Post, a new advisory committee, which convenes every 5 years, says that the rest of the American diet is having devastating effects other than fruits and vegetables. About 2/3 of American adults are overweight or obese. And maybe worse, about half of American adults, about 117 million people, have preventable chronic diseases related to poor diet and physical inactivity, the group said. This diagnosis is the foundation for the group's report, which provides the scientific basis for the nation's dietary guidelines, the advice booklet that will be issued by the federal government late this year. Quote, I wouldn't call it gloomy, said Marianne Newhouser, a committee member from Fred Hutchins' Cancer Research Center in Seattle, Washington. I call it reality, unquote. I call it BS. Anyway, the committee's report amounts to a scientific update regarding what is known about healthy eating. For the first time, the committee is recommending that the government should consider the environment when telling Americans what they should eat, a move that could have significant impact on the amount of meat people eat. It also, for the first time, addressed concerns about coffee, saying there is strong evidence that moderate consumption is not associated with long-term health risks. I challenge that, but at any rate. The panel also reversed decades of warnings about dietary cholesterol, as the Post previously reported. For years, the dietary guidelines had advised Americans to consume no more than 300 milligrams of cholesterol a day, warning that limited Americans. So that on the blood, no such necessary. Come on, government. I will eat what I want to eat. Don't tell me what to eat. If I want a slice of pizza, I'm going to order me a slice of pizza. If I want me an orange peel, 20-ounce size from the Jamba Juice down the street, and I'm not endorsing them here, I'm going to go and get one. But don't tell me what to eat when you want me to eat it, because honestly, if I'm not craving it, I just don't want, unless someone's gone to the trouble of preparing it for me in advance, then I will, of course, eat it and thank them for it, because slaving over a hot stove, that's a big deal. But
and don't mess with the cheese.
Yes, you can't forget that cheese, because they don't want us eating that either. Very unfortunate. So, what will it take for America to realize Obamacare isn't really about us? When will America remember what God's law on gay marriage really is? And who's got the soft scrub cleaner? Cocaine, you're on. Supermarket sweep reference for those of you who don't know. Stay tuned for developments in our continuing battle against global socialism. And Jake, it's over to you.
All right, Corey Evan with tonight's Global Socialism. All right, folks, we're going to go ahead and take another short break here on the program. When we come back, we have the latest DC news tonight and our continuing news segment, Oddball News, features President Obama, and did he kill a tree in India? That's coming up. Plus, Corey Evan asks what's coming up in tonight's Lawsuits Across America.
Yes, I am talking about a sexual assault that happened years ago at a Seattle Children's Hospital, and now this young lady is suing in court. In addition, UPS is shipping unpacked smokes and getting sued, and a pot shop wants to open up near a hotel. And that's a pot road that's coming up on the Evan-Miller Report. You're listening to SHR Media. We'll be right back.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
In a moment, cancer changed our lives forever.
We were told nothing could be done to enjoy these final moments together.
But in that moment, when all seemed lost, St. Jude Children's Research Hospital gave us hope.
Because at this moment, St. Jude Children's Research Hospital is saving lives with pioneering research and care. We're changing the way the world treats childhood cancer by sharing our discoveries with doctors and scientists everywhere.
And we'll never have to pay St. Jude for anything, ever.
At this moment, she wants to be in her own bed.
I want to be back at school with my friends. I want to be outside playing.
Please take a moment and join St. Jude in finding cures and saving children. Visit stjude.org.
Some of America's bravest warriors are returning home wounded. Here's one of them.
My name is Norberto Lara. I served for 11 years in the United States Army. While I was on a combat patrol in Baqaba, Iraq, a rocket-propelled grenade took my arm off at the shoulder. When I came home, I felt alone. My family was around me, but I couldn't talk to them about what I'd seen and what I'd done. I remember just thinking, man, the way I am right now, I don't want to live. I was discharged from the Army, and I've been working with the Wounded Warrior Project since 2007. You don't have to be severely wounded to be with the Wounded Warrior Project. We do have a lot of guys that have post-traumatic stress disorder. Being able to share your story, I guess it kind of helps you wrap your mind around what did happen over there. Just because you've left the military doesn't mean your life is over. Because when these guys are coming home, I'm kind of leading and training them. Instead of for combat, I'm leading and training them to heal. If I come away with anything from Wounded Warrior Project, it's them giving my life back. My name is Norby, and yes, I do suffer from post-traumatic stress disorder, but I'm okay.
Don't suffer in silence. Contact woundedwarriorproject.org.
Gotta keep this show going, don't you know? Because my TV career's in the...
And welcome back to the Evan-Miller Report here on shrmedia.com and Pundit Press Radio, I'm Jason Miller along with Corey Evan, your radio host, live on the Friday show of the Evan-Miller Report. And yes, we are on the radio because our TV careers still remain in the dump.
Yes, ain't that the truth. But CNN, if you want our demo tape, we'll work on that and send it to you.
Ooh, he's trying to get a job at CNN. Wow. Is he trying to take
Either
over
that or
Piers
Fox
Morgan's position? I thought they got rid of all the bald-headed men.
Yeah, I'm sure if I polish my skull, I'll be able to look the look. And maybe I'll bring some sense to them, especially after they finally got rid of Piers Morgan. Because I hear they're desperate for ratings, having put out a game show.
My.
Yeah,
And
I'll tell you
Corey
more about it later.
Absolutely, and Corey Evan will have the latest in entertainment coming up in a couple minutes. But first, we get over to the latest in D.C. news. The U.S. Justice Department will seek an emergency stay to block a decision by a federal judge and allow eligible immigrants to apply for benefits granted under President Obama's recent executive immigration order, the White House said on Friday. Immigration activists have called on the Obama administration to take legal steps to reverse the injunction issued in the state of Texas this past Monday that barred immigration officials from accepting work permit applications under the orders. White House spokesman and BS artist Josh Earnest told reporters that the Justice Department will file paperwork requesting the stay by Monday of next week. But the stay must be approved by the same judge who issued the injunction, U.S. District Judge Andrew Hannon in Brownsville, Texas, potentially creating more headaches for the White House. The Justice Department is concerned that Hannon could not only deny the stay, but drag his feet in making a decision. Doing so would delay the filing of a former appeal in the Fifth Circuit Court of U.S. Appeals, something that would take the case out of Hannon's hands. Approximately 4.7 million illegal immigrants could be granted a reprieve from their deportation and work permits under Obama's immigration orders if they are allowed to proceed. The ACLU, or the American Civil Crappers, as I like to call them, Corey Evan, have filed a lawsuit yesterday, which was on Thursday for those of you listening on podcast, against the state's third largest public hospital district, accusing it of failing to comply with an abortion rights law. The lawsuit alleges that Skagit Regional Health, which operates a large hospital and several clinics in the Skagit County, about 100 miles north of Seattle in Washington State, is not following the state's 1991 Reproductive Privacy Act. That law requires that any state medical facility that provides maternity care must also provide abortion care, and it prohibits the state from interfering with or denying a woman's right to an abortion. The right of a woman to choose or to refuse to have an abortion is fundamental and has long been recognized under Washington's law, said Kathleen Taylor, Executive Director and BS Artist of the ACLU of Washington State, in a statement announcing the lawsuit. You sense my opinion on this one here, Core. The ACLU accuses Skagit Regional Health of providing a wide array of maternity care services while not offering pharmaceutical abortions and rarely providing surgical abortions. Instead, the lawsuit said Skagit Regional routinely referred women seeking abortions to off-site facilities like Planned Parenthood rather than performing them at its hospitals and clinics. Okay, so because they use an outside contractor, the abortions still get done. So what's the ACLU's problem? You still get to legally murder a baby. So cry me a river. The baby's still getting killed.
Yeah, that's a little body that will never get to be used for its full potential.
So all I got to say to the ACLU of Washington State is go do a lawsuit that actually means something, you pieces of filth.
Oh, yes, absolutely.
Moving on to Wisconsin now, where Governor Scott Walker backed a surprise move Friday by Republican legislators to quickly vote on making Wisconsin a right-to-work state, an action the likely 2016 presidential candidate initially said should be delayed to avoid reigniting massive pro-union protest in that state. Walker had expressed concerns to leaders in the GOP-controlled legislature that rushing the decisive proposal could distract from his agenda, and in September, during the heat of his re-election campaign, he said he wouldn't support it in this session. But after a series of private meetings with lawmakers, followed by an announcement that the bill would be voted on next week, Walker's spokeswoman said he would sign it, saying, quote, Governor Walker continues to vote on budget priorities to grow our economy and to streamline state government. His spokeswoman, Laurel Patrick, continued saying in an email, quote, with that said, Governor Walker co-sponsored right-to-work legislation as a lawmaker and supports the policy, end of quote. Walker walked past reporters, declined to answer any questions at a National Governors Association meeting today in Washington. Under right-to-work, unions are prohibited from reaching labor deals with businesses that require private sector workers to pay fees to the union. 24 other states already have those laws in place. Walker rose to prominence back in 2011 when he pushed through a law known as Act 10 that effectively ended collective bargaining rights for most public workers. That led to protests involving as many as 100,000 people at the state capitol and a 2012 recall election that Walker ended up winning. Unlike Act 10, which Walker proposed, the right to work push is coming from Republicans who control the legislature. All right, folks, it's time. It's time to do a segment we like to call here on the Evan-Miller Report, Oddball News.
Yes.
And in today's Oddball News, it stars President Obama. And Corey, I bet he's wondering what President Obama is hugging this time, and why.
Boy, I can't wait to hear this.
And why I mention hugging, because it has to do with a tree. Officials in India want to make one thing clear, at least that's what they're saying, that the tree that President Obama planted in New Delhi up to 3 weeks ago is not dead. Excuse me, is there a famous movie quote somewhere saying, he's not dead! He's not dead!
Probably somewhere, I just forget which film it is.
Ah, it's The Lord of the Rings, The Return of the King.
I'm going to have to watch all three of those. Now that I've seen the Hobbit films, now the Lord of the Rings will probably make sense to me.
Certainly. Well, back to this story. It just looks dead. The peepal tree was awash in leaves when Obama planted it at the New Delhi memorial to Indian independence leader Mohandas K. Gandhi. By Thursday, though, it was just a single lonely stem. Its lack of leaves has given Indian officials sleepless nights when the media here blasting them for allowing the tree to die less than a month after the presidential visit. But the reality, peepal trees often lose their leaves this time of year. It's a seasonal phenomenon, said B.C. Ketter, a top regional government horticulturist. Wow, say that.
Horticulturist.
Sherbets. Yeah, well, try saying that after you drink a few sherbets. After he and other officials visited the tree and pronounced it in good health. It will send out shoots within the next 10 days, he said. The peepal, or Ficus rosloshka, is seen as holy by many in Asia. The Buddha is said to have attained enlightenment under the tree in 589 BC. At least that's according to Indian officials. That is an unconfirmed report at this time. So, President Obama will give you a slide on this one. And as another famous movie quote says, "He's alive! I can't believe it! He's alive!"
Oh, brother.
Unlike Corey's tropical hurricane, that's now a tropical storm that is dying quicker than the first season of one of his favorite game shows that got the can.
Unfortunately. But at least one of my more recent favorites, Idiot Test, has been renewed. I'll show you that one later.
Absolutely. All right, moving on tonight. A man who was unhappy with his haircut now faces criminal charges after police say he became enraged and threw items around a Connecticut salon. Stanford Police Sergeant Kelly Conley says 47-year-old Alan Becker was angered further when he learned the trim he got Wednesday morning was going to cost him $50. Conley said Becker kicked a hole in a salon wall, became hostile toward staff and customers, and threw a candle displaying other items, then left. Police say Becker then returned later and demanded his hair be fixed, but the salon refused. Authorities later arrested Becker on breach of peace and criminal mischief charges at his Starnford home. A recording on a phone listing for Becker said he couldn't receive new messages, and it's not clear if he has a lawyer. And Corey, I don't think Harvey Levin's going to be available for this case.
Not that lawyer, absolutely not. I'm sure that even if he were available, he'd never take it if you paid him $1 million.
All right, folks, we know Corey Evan always likes talking about sponge pants on this program, but one Canadian legislator on Thursday offered up one of the most original excuses he ever heard for early running out of the House of Commons in Canada. Pat Martin, during a vote, said his new cheap pair of underpants was too tight. Martin, who belongs to the official opposition New Democrats Party, bolted as members of Parliament began to rise one by one to vote. He later blamed his departure on an unwise purchase at a local department store. They had men's underwear on for half price, and I bought a bunch that was clearly too small for me. I found it difficult to sit for any length of time, he told the chamber, to guffaws and applause from fellow legislators. Martin, one of the more colorful Canadian members of Parliament, did not return in time to cast his vote. And ladies and gentlemen, this is speak from experience. Don't always rely on the clearance rack for your purchases. And I think Corey Evan can speak from experience when he ate that bad, epic Chinese food.
Yes, and it's even worse if it turns out it's from the chain of Target, because this is Canada. Their stores are all closing up there. So if that's where you got them, sir, can't take them back. I mean, that's a move that's so dumb it makes Patrick Starr look like a smarty-pants Boston lawyer.
Ooh, look at that. Corey Evan coming up with the humorous quotes. All right,
yes,
folks.
I was recycling that one from the old days, but it still works, I think.
It still works. It still works. All right, folks. Underwear and boxers aside, it's now time for tonight's Lawsuits Across America.
And now it's time for Lawsuits Across America. The cases are real. All rise for the Honorable Corey Evans.
Thank you. As always, Pat, ladies and gentlemen, please be seated and come to order. Lawsuits across America for this Friday are now in session. Our first item on the docket is a rather serious one from the Seattle PI. A former patient at Seattle Children's Hospital had sued, claiming hospital staff failed to notice that she was repeatedly sexually assaulted by another patient. Attorneys for the young woman claim at least 3 other children have been sexually assaulted at the Laurelhurst neighborhood facility in recent years. Despite assurances of reform from hospital managers, they contend too little is being done to protect children. Writing the court, attorneys Steve Berman and Marty McLean say their client was just one of an unknown number of children abused while locked in children's inpatient psychiatric unit. Writing the court, attorney Steve, rereading that, Berman, a nationally prominent attorney specializing in class action suits, went on to say he believes, quote, there are more children who have been victimized as well. The spokeswoman for Seattle Children's declined to comment on the lawsuit. Attorneys for the University of Washington-affiliated nonprofit have not yet responded to the allegations in court. Then a sophomore in high school, the girl was admitted to Children's Secure Psychiatric Unit in 2009 for treatment of an eating disorder. The secure facility allowed hospital staff to lock up the girl if needed and to control her movement. She and other patients spent much of the time in the shared activity room. Berman, I was misreading that, described the children as being warehoused together in the room. Children in the room were supposed to be watched constantly, Berman said in court papers, but it was there the girl claims to have been fondled repeatedly and aggressively by a boy who'd been hospitalized for serious drug and emotional problems. Berman said the boy assaulted his client nearly every time they were in the activity room together. The girl's medical records show she didn't feel safe in the secure facility. She developed stomach problems, oh boy, and her father warned hospital staff that he's seen, quote, some behaviors in others that could be a safety issue. Why didn't they see all these troubles there? I mean, me and Jay, we here at the Evan-Miller Report, we love Children's Hospital for a very important reason. They treat childhood diseases in ways that normal hospitals can't. But the thing is about this particular one, if they're letting this kind of activity go unchecked like this, you're just asking for trouble from not only us, but the whole country. So we're going to keep an eye on that one as well. Moving on, one of the nation's largest marijuana policy reform groups is calling for a nationwide boycott of Holiday Inn after a hotel management company that owns a Holiday Inn in Colorado filed a federal lawsuit yesterday.
From the city of marijuana. They're being Debbie Downers. Good grief.
Yes, unfortunately.
Cry me a river of marijuana.
I'd rather not drink out of that river, but anyway. The management company that owns a Holiday Inn in Colorado filed a federal lawsuit Thursday aiming to shut down the state's legal and regulated marijuana program. Marijuana Policy Project urged a boycott of the hotel brand after New Vision Hotels filed a lawsuit claiming that they already lost business at their Holiday Inn located in Frisco, Colorado, and feared that the brand could be damaged due to a nearby state legal retail marijuana shop and grow operation that hasn't opened yet. In the suit, New Vision claims that some hotel guests are opting out of lodging at the Frisco Holiday Inn because of a proposed nearby marijuana shop, and that guests are concerned about potential crime that the new shop could bring with it. The suit argues that under the U.S. Constitution's Supremacy Clause, which states that federal law generally takes precedence over state law, Colorado's regulation of recreation marijuana is unconstitutional because marijuana remains illegal at the federal level. And speaking of smoke, brass at UPS might want to smoke them if they've got them. They're getting sued by the city and state for $180 million, the Daily News has learned, the New York Daily News. The joint lawsuit by State Attorney General Eric Schneiderman and City Corporation Counsel Zachary Carter charges the shipping giant delivered almost 700,000 cartons of unpacked cigarettes across the state between 2010 and 2014. The illicit shipments from New York Indian Reservation have, quote, cheated this state out of millions in revenue, Schneiderman said. The shipments, over 78,000 of them, cost the city and state over $35 million tax revenue, the suit says. Carter says the company intentionally turned a blind eye to shipments it knew were illegal just so it could make a buck. The suit says the company's conduct violated federal anti-racketeering statutes entitling the state and city to $104 million in damages. It says UPS should also be on the hook for another $78 million for violating the terms of an 2005 agreement with the AG's office. The suit says it's based on documents subpoenaed from UPS. In a statement, UPS denied, quote, allegations that we've knowingly shipped cigarettes to customers and said it, quote, will vigorously defend our position. UPS tobacco policy strictly prohibits the shipment of cigarettes to consumers and unlicensed dealers or distributors, and we terminate service under that contract program if the policy is violated. The statement says, the joint suit against UPS is similar to another action filed last year against FedEx. That case is pending. It's all smoke and mirrors, isn't it, Jay?
Bunch of smoke and mirrors, and that's all coming from the city of marijuana. Or is it coming from Will Ferrell's crack?
Yeah, she did make a visit to SNL last week for their 40th anniversary. And, of course, it's all things Ferrell smoke. That's the category of the week.
Things, and they make you go nuts all over them.
This Lawsuits Across America brought to you by Puppy Nuggets. Yeah, I think at this point it's time to declare Lawsuits Across America case smoked.
Ooh, I like that.
Yeah. Put that in your exhaust pipe and choke it and smoke it.
Oh, yeah, absolutely right. All right, folks, it's time for the latest in entertainment news. And, Corey, it's less than 2 days to the Oscars, and we might have some raining on their parade. Isn't that right?
Yes, because in California, we're predicting rain on Sunday. Well, the rain has been predicted by Yahoo Weather. At least that was brought to me as of late, and I will post the latest on that story on the Facebook page as we get developments on it, facebook.com/the Evan-Miller Report. Not to take attention away from the Oscars, but, Jay, you'll be happy about this. Charlie Harper lived, at least he lived, until the final moments of Thursday's series finale of 2.5 Men.
Yeah.
If you don't want to hear what
series finale, I actually did watch it.
You watched it?
I actually
watched
it.
You.
I'll give a little review on it. I thought it was quite hilarious despite all the jokes in there. Yeah, quite a few guest stars in that show, and I'm going to go ahead and give it away because most people are probably not going to watch it. You had guest appearances by Arnold, former Governor Arnold Schwarzenegger. You had John Stamos guest starring. You had multiple of Charlie's ex-girlfriends showing up there. Of course, Charlie's daughter, his proposed daughter, in the show, and Mr. Jones makes a 1 minute 30-second appearance back on the program before flying back to Japan. So it was quite an interesting show. Instead of a half-hour show, it was a 1 hour show.
Yes, the only way to go out is with a bang. And I think it sounds like it exploded into the sands of time, didn't it?
Yeah, it was quite interesting, but I think the show, in my opinion, died when Charlie left the show. Despite what we heard with Charlie Sheen, the real actor who played the character of Charlie in 2.5 Men, his issues with drug rehab, the show really failed from there, and really failed to keep an audience, I think.
Yes, and besides, I think they kept that show going too long because once the little half man grew into a man and went into the military, he pretty much had nowhere to go from there. So, good riddance to bad.
Especially when you bring in Miley Beepin' Cyrus as a last-minute attempt to boost the ratings, you know things are going wrong.
That's an asinine move, CBS. You know you were desperate. Admit it.
But what was an interesting thing in this whole little thing was that Warner Brothers had a very big role in it because at least 5 minutes of the program was done under animation.
Animation? Oh, animation. You're going to have to send me at least animation. But other than that, it's what is so bad rubbish?
So let's move on from this bad rubbish, throw it down the garbage disposal, and send it over to Charlie Sheen's house and charge him the waste disposal fee.
Good idea. Scarlett Johansson has returned to the music world on another note, and she's bringing some girl power to it. This from E-Online. The 30-year-old actress has joined a girl band called The Singles, also made up of drummer Estee Haim, the sister of the sister trio Haim, plus Kendra Morris, Holly Miranda, and Julia Heidigan, according to Rolling Stone. On Friday, they released their debut single, Candy, a dance and pop track produced by Dave Andrew Sitek for the indie rock group TV on the Radio. It'll be released on his Federal Prism label, which you can pre-order on vinyl for $24, believe it or not. And the Singles was, of course, inspired by 80s female groups like the Bangles and the Go-Go's and Canadian electro R&B artist Grimes. So it's going to be interesting to see what little Miss Johansson comes up with the Singles. And here's a rumor that a lot of fans will definitely want to be true. Emma Watson is reportedly dating Prince Harry. This from Just Jared. Yeah, I know. What an odd couple they are. While there's no confirmation of any of this being true, the 24-year-old actress and the 30-year-old royal have been going on secret dates and are getting to know each other well, according to Woman's Day. So basically speculation at this point. Harry allegedly got a mutual friend to set him up and then threw a party with 12 other friends for them to meet at. So, Jay, what would you think if that turned out to be true?
Rephrase the question.
If that turned out to be true, Jay, what would you think of it? Would it be any good, or is Emma Watson cruising for a heart cruising?
Well, considering that both of them are communist, I think the two fit just fine together.
Yeah, because Harry is a far cry from his brother William.
That's true. Harry doesn't let his political opinions known, but he is known as a ladies' man, much like his father, or Prince Charles.
Yes, and we all know how he and Camilla are, so I think we better wrap up this entertainment report. I thank you for listening. I hope to entertain you on the Weekender tomorrow. Stay tuned for that. Tomorrow, 3 Eastern, noon Pacific. And Jay, I'm going to give you the mic because we have a little bit of breaking news to end our show, don't we?
Yes, we do, Corey. This just coming in from KBC Los Angeles, and it looks like this just coming in that a contract has now been signed. This has to do with this evening with the West Coast dock workers. They have reached a tentative contract after labor strikes, and Corey Evan has been reporting this week. There's been a dispute at the Long Beach docks here in Los Angeles. A lot of delays going through the port of Los Angeles, bringing in a lot of product into this country. This has been happening for a good portion of a month now. That the factories and docks over at the port of Long Beach in Los Angeles have ran on partial employment at the time because of union actions over there. So again, this coming in that the Port of Los Angeles union workers have come to a tentative agreement with the Port of Los Angeles tonight, Port of Long Beach, on a deal to get rid of that strike. So that just coming in, and of course we'll have more on that agreement on Monday's show. Corey Evan will get the details of that contract and give it to you.
Yes, and I have a feeling this will be good for my job because I work in distribution. That's my day job here. This is my evening job doing this little radio show. So knowing my job is now going to be safe again for the time being, that's a good feeling.
It certainly is. All right, folks, before we leave you tonight, we wanted to bring you up this story. And, of course, we all remembered last Friday on the program when we had an extended segment on the great legendary reporter Stan Chambers. Well, Stan Chambers, who served more than 6 decades as a reporter for KTLA-5 in Los Angeles, was celebrated by family and friends today during a funeral mass. 6 sons and 2 stepsons were among the pallbearers during the private ceremony at St. Brendan Church in Windsor Square here in California. Chambers died at his Holby Hills home last week on February the 13th at the age of 91. He was a beloved journalist and familiar face in Southern California. He first began working at KTLA Los Angeles back in 1947 and is considered one of the first broadcasters on television. If there was ever an angel on earth, there was Stan Chambers, said Gerald Rubin, a former KTLA executive producer who worked with Chambers for more than 30 years. Former KTLA anchor Marta Waller said being around Chambers made people smile. His funeral was an occasion for both sadness and joy, she suggested. It would make me want to cry, except he had such a wonderful life and we are all better because he was here, she said. Chambers retired back in 2010 at the age of 87. He was a USC graduate who served in the U.S. Navy. His career at KTLA saw many television news broadcasting first. Pat Morrison, Los Angeles Times reporter columnist, said, quote, "To call him the dean of Southern California TV reporters is too lowball. What he was for one thing the sweetest man ever to hold a microphone." Hundreds turned out for the funeral today when the hearse drove away. The crowd on the church's front steps clapped. Chambers would have been happy to see everyone gathered together, his son Ed Chambers said. He would say, "Haven't we had a good time?" Stan Chambers is survived by his wife, Giggy, 11 children, 38 grandchildren, and 8 great-grandchildren. And ladies and gentlemen, as a broadcaster who was influenced by Stan Chambers, I say to the family of Stan Chambers, God bless you and thank you for giving us Stan Chambers for those 6 decades that he was alive. And on that note, ladies and gentlemen, that is the Evan-Miller Report for this Friday, February the 20th, 2015. I'm Jason Miller.
And I'm Corey Evan. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter. You'll be glad you did. And be sure to catch me tomorrow on the SHR Weekender, 3 Eastern, noon Pacific, right here on SHR Media and Pundit Press Radio. See you then.
Absolutely. And if you missed any of tonight's show, you can check us out on Spreaker, and you can check us out via iHeartRadio. Just search the Evan-Miller Report. Again,
you can even search us on the YouTube app if you have YouTube on your phone, or you can go to YouTube and search the Evan-Miller Report.
Interesting.
You didn't know that, did you? The SHR Media channel actually automatically uploads via the Spreaker. It gets duplicated.
Nice. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I learn something new every day.
Absolutely. That's what this channel is here for.
Absolutely right. All right, folks, that does it for us on the Evan-Miller Report for this Friday. We thank you for joining us. Don't forget to join Corey for the SHR Weekend News tomorrow. Good night, everybody.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.